But we've very much moved from being a box shifter, shifting out boxes of pens to schools, to actually becoming an education company. We want to be there for the school, for the teachers, for the tutors, to provide, all the support. You're not being tested on your reading ability in these exams. If you're doing a geography exam and you're being asked about periglaciation or volcanoes, there's a lot of technical terminology, and the pens can just be used simply to run over the words and hear them aloud. And it was a startup. It was really exciting. It was internet stuff, which was all brand new at the time. It seems amazing. We're all so used to all this stuff now, but the internet was actually a new, exciting, place that people had never really explored before. Yeah, the pen does optical character recognition on the word it sees. So it's seeing that image, captures that image of the word. It then turns it into digital text on the screen and then performs text-to-speech on it within a matter of seconds. Our technology allows the teacher and the teaching assistant to be more nimble, to move around the classroom, to not have to sit with one or two students who perhaps dominate their time.
Welcome to the Qualified Tutor Podcast. I'm your host, Ludo Miller, and I'll be interviewing tutors and thought leaders from across the tutoring landscape to inspire, inform, and motivate you to become the best tutor you can be. The Qualified Tutor community is a safe and supportive space for tutors who love to learn and grow. We offer training, resources, ideas, and a chance to connect with like-minded tutors. If you'd like to continue the conversation, join our Qualified Tutor community at www.qualifiedtutorcommunity.org or find it in the show notes. Welcome to the next episode of the Qualified Tutor Podcast. Today we welcome on Jack Churchill, CEO and co-founder of Scanning Pens. Now, Scanning Pens was born out of a desire to bring technology to the world of SEND education. And the primary tool that Jack and co-founder Toby Sutton deliver to students and educational institutions and schools is the Cpen, which I'm sure we'll be hearing much more about in the next 25 minutes or so. This is a tool used really to help dyslexic students kind of read and access words that they might otherwise kind of struggle with. So today we're going to be discussing how scanning pens can be used for tutors and educators kind of everywhere around the globe, and what we can expect from the upcoming Dear for Dyslexia Learning Festival, which is taking place later on this month. So welcome, Jack. Thank you very much for joining us.
Hi, Ludo. No, really delighted to be with you. Thank you so much for including me in this episode.
Not a problem at all. There's I feel a great deal that we can discuss here, but we'd like to focus kind of today on the background of scanning pens and how tutors can utilize this tool to their best advantage. Now, as regular listeners will know, we start with a question every time that tends to get the most out of our guests, and that question is, Jack, what kind of a student were you?
I wasn't a very good student, let's put it like that. I definitely struggled at school. It was back in the day when they had lists on the wall of how you'd done in your tests the previous week or the previous month, and my name was normally featured quite near the bottom of that list regularly. But I enjoyed school. I enjoyed learning, but I just found certain subjects, particularly maths or science, really tough. I found the language and the reading quite hard. The school recommended I went for a dyslexia assessment at the age of 14, and I had that, and I was assessed as being dyslexic. And actually, I think from that point onwards, a new chapter opened actually in my education, because I finally was getting a lot more extra support, and I wasn't just being told that I wasn't working hard enough, and it was all my fault. I was being told, actually, you can have some extra support when it comes to exams. We can give you extra time and give you access to more resources, as it were. And these things make a huge difference to someone's outcome in life. I went on to pass my GCSEs, A levels, go to university, and eventually set up a business in the world of dyslexia. I'd never planned to end up in the world of dyslexia, but sometimes life goes full circle, doesn't it? And one day you wake up and you realize, oh, I'm working for a dyslexia-focused business, and I'm also dyslexic. What a coincidence is that?
Yeah, I'm sure it would have made those teachers who helped you in those school days extremely proud to know that they contributed to that. So I think what you've done there, Jack, very concisely, is lead us on into the next step, really, which is telling us where scanning pens kind of came from and why it's here to stay.
Yeah, so I left university. I then went off and worked for various different businesses. This is all around 2000, and one of them was an education company, and it was sharing university research across Europe. And it was a startup. It was really exciting. It was internet stuff, which was all brand new at the time. It seems amazing. We're all so used to all this stuff now, but the internet was actually a new, exciting, place that people had never really explored before. And anyway, I found myself working for this education company with some friends from university. The internet bubble then burst, I think late 2001, early 2002. And myself and the 40 other young people who'd been working for this internet education company found ourselves sort of out of work, looking for a job and all the rest. At that point, I was introduced to a company from Israel, actually, who made pen scanners. And they had pen scanners for translating and pen scanners for reading. And I was quite captivated by this technology that could support someone to read independently. And I didn't really overthink about it at the time. I just thought, this is quite clever technology. You can run a pen over a word and it will read to you aloud in a number of seconds. And so we started working with that company in the UK, being their UK partner, and we went to lots of education and technology shows. And then over the following 17 years, we just expanded out the business. We worked with different suppliers. And actually, in more recent years, it's been Cpen, a Swedish company that we've teamed up with to develop this latest range of technology. The WisCom pens were always very clever for the year 2000, but when you start getting to 2018, 2019, this technology is now slow, clunky. It's got a voice like Stephen Hawking, who we all admire, obviously, but I just felt like we were ready for some new technology, and hence why, in the last 4 or 5 years, we've released this new technology from Cpen, which now uses cameras. It's got big chips, so it can store really nice quality voices, different accents, and it gives young people and adults the technology they need to instantly access printed material whilst on the go. If you can't be an independent worker, it's a real struggle in life. Imagine you're in a class, you're 13, 14 years old. Are you going to stick your hand up minute after minute and ask your teacher to come over and read words to you that you can't access in worksheets? You're not. So we feel our technology, which in some ways is quite simple, straightforward, just gives people that instant feedback of those words that they need. And they come with headphones, so they're kind of independent. They're not disturbing others, and they can still be listening to the teacher while hearing feedback from the pen.
Now, without getting too technical, Jack, I've got 2 questions to ask you.
Okay.
First one is just step back one pace, and just if you could just explain how a scanning pen works. And then part B of that question is, how do you prevent a scanning pen from getting so big that it no longer becomes like a pen, basically?
What do you mean so big?
Well, you say that you added, you added chips to add kind of more voice technology,
Yep.
and by increasing the functionality of your pens, how do you keep them kind of so slight and able to be held in a hand and used as a pen, basically?
Yeah, okay, no, great question. So, I mean, I guess a lot of the technology has got smaller, and you've now can fit gigabytes of memory onto small devices. So over the last 20 years, the technology has gradually shrunk down. So it's been able to be smaller, and actually that's made it much easier for younger people to be able to hold the pen and to use it. Before we were talking about 10, 11-year-olds. Now we're talking even 6, 7-year-olds can hold this technology and use it for reading. I think you're right though. There is we always come back to the idea of supporting reading and having definitions to support the definitions. We do have other features like voice recorders and language translation, but we always come back to the core, which is to support someone with their reading and to try and work to make that as useful as possible in a way. I forgot your first question, Ludo. Do you remember it?
Not a problem. I think I probably tied you up slightly with the intricacies of the second part B, but the part A was really just how a scanning pen works for someone who's never encountered one.
Brilliant. So yeah, it's a small handheld device. It's about the size of kind of like a really large highlighter pen that you might use to highlight words in a book. And in fact, it works in a sort of similar way. You tap the pen down on the paper and a light comes on from the nose of the pen, and you run that over the word or line of text and lift it up, and it then reads the word aloud to you. So there's a camera on the end of the pen, there's a screen and a speaker, and you've got charging for the USB rechargeable battery, and you've got a headphone port as well. So the pen does optical character recognition on the word it sees. So it's seeing that image, captures that image of the word. It then turns it into digital text on the screen and then performs text-to-speech on it within a matter of seconds. And it can read a word or a line of text or even a whole paragraph aloud. You just have to, the limitation is you have to scan one line in at a time. And I think that's quite good because it means that an individual is with their book or their document and they're working through it line by line, and anything they get stuck on, they're using this as a tool to support them with their reading. I think it's more for supporting someone who can read a bit but just gets stuck on individual words or phrases. I mean, some people do use it to read all the text, but I think it's more as for picking out individual words on a page, as it were.
No, I suddenly was thinking in my mind about using this pen to make reading a very kind of passive thing and just kind of drawing over a series of lines and almost while you're doing something else, but actually that's not its best use, is it?
Definitely. And you can, I'm sure you've come across, there are apps you can get nowadays where you can take a picture and it will convert that into text and it will read the whole thing aloud to you. I mean, those apps are brilliant. And as a company, we always recommend a toolbox approach. So you might use a pen scanner at one part of your day. You might use text-to-speech on your phone or on your computer at another part of the day. And there's just lots of different tools in that toolbox you can deploy in order to support someone with their everyday difficulties, but maybe that's reading or writing or whatever it might be. But what I would say is brilliant about the pen scanner, particularly for people who are maybe at school and let's say dyslexic, is it does everything on the device and it's distraction free. So if I give my 12-year-old an iPad and tell him to go away and any words he gets stuck on, take a picture, and he will be off doing other stuff on that iPad quite quickly, social media, chatting.
That's what I, Jack. Yeah.
So that's why I really value our technology as it's so easy to say it's all about apps now in this world and this is the solution to everything. But actually, when it comes to working with printed materials, I think our product is a world-class product, and our sales over the last sort of 5-6 years have really shown that. We've expanded to 5 countries, and we've got nearly 100 employees now. So there is a real need for this type of simple technology that's easy to use out of the box, that people can just quickly get the results they want.
Yeah, and it was very interesting to note that since the start of lockdown this time last year, sales in the Amazon Kindle have kind of almost plummeted, and sales of books have shot up again, after many years of kind of decline, because people don't want to read on their screen after they've spent all days on the screen. So I think with the rise of books again, a tool like a scanning pen is vitally important, because if we return to books, then that means those who struggled with reading printed material will encounter those issues again. So no, that's a very important point to pull out there, I think, Jack. So thank you very much. You mentioned before, when we last spoke, that the scanning pen, the technology that you use, has been used not just in the teaching environment or in the tutoring environment, but in prisons and in libraries and in the workplace. And we may well get on to kind of those other areas that your company kind of touches. But I'd like to know how a scanning pen can be used kind of by a tutor or a teacher in their teaching environment to assist kind of with the learning.
Yeah, so this has really come to light in the last 5 or 6 years, and we've even taken on a couple of educators now within our business who create resources and strategies for schools to help them get going with the pens. But we've very much moved from being a box shifter, shifting out boxes of pens to schools, to actually becoming an education company. We want to be there for the school, for the teachers, for the tutors, to provide all the support. We don't want you just to get the pen and think, oh gosh, what am I going to do with that? We want to give you an activity book that goes with it, that will get the child excited and enthused. There's like word searches and things like that to help them get off the mark. And so we as a company very much are here to support educators, and I would tell educators to get in touch with us if they can't find any useful resources. Just to look on our website or get in touch. So I'd say the main things are, certainly in the classroom environment, and particularly now with COVID, our technology allows the teacher and the teaching assistant to be more nimble, to move around the classroom, to not have to sit with 1 or 2 students who perhaps dominate their time. So our technology allows someone who is a dedicated, struggling reader, someone who's having difficulty decoding, to have this tool sitting on their desk and to run over the words and hear them aloud. We think that is then freeing up the teacher and teaching assistant to move around the classroom environment. I can give you a second example, which is in exams. So our exam reader pen, which is bright orange and only reads aloud, is approved for use in GCSEs and A-levels. And this can be used by anyone who's sitting those exams. You don't need exam accommodations. This pen can be given out by the exams officer on the day of the exam. As long as it's part of the normal way of working, the student can use it to decode any words on the question paper that they've struggled with. Now, the reason the exam boards wanted our technology to be used in exams was twofold. They said, one, children are going to be leaving school soon and they need to manage on their own. If we've given them a human reader for 15 years, that's going to be a real struggle for that individual to transition into the workplace. The second thing is the schools couldn't resource it. So they had maybe 30 children taking one exam in the summer who struggled with reading. These might be students with English as an additional language. These might be students with dyslexia. These might just be students who are struggling with reading. And the school wants to support those children to pass their exams. You're not being tested on your reading ability in these exams. If you're doing a geography exam and you're being asked about periglaciation or volcanoes, there's a lot of technical terminology, and the pens can just be used simply to run over the words and hear them aloud. So the second reason the exam boards allowed the pens was a whole resourcing issue. The schools couldn't cope with finding 30 readers to sit with the students, all the different rooms. So we don't say our technology is for everyone, but certainly for some of those students who try the pen and enjoy using it, they can be back in the main exam hall with their peer group, headphones plugged in, and the words they get stuck on, they can scan over and hear them aloud. And I would say more often than not, the pens are used as well as a bit of a prop to give them a backup on that day of their exam. if you come across a word in your maths paper, trigonometry, I don't know, there's lots of complicated words in maths, you can use this pen to decode it. As you know, as well as I do, Ludo, dyslexia is something that sort of passes through society. It doesn't affect one group of society or another. Everyone can be affected by it. So I think the British Dyslexia Association say 1 in 10 people have dyslexia. And so even really high functioning students who are at some of the best schools, best universities in our country, they still have difficulties decoding words. It's not just the child at the bottom of the class. There's children through and adults through the whole spectrum of society who struggle with reading. And it's so important. If you don't pass your exams, it's going to really affect your outcomes in life. So we're really passionate about helping people to achieve their goals early on. As you mentioned earlier, we're working a bit with prisons, and there is this whole school to prison pipeline where people sort of fall out of school because they're not getting the support they needed, and they can end up on a path in life that they end up in prison. And more than 50% of people in prisons in the UK have got low literacy, and I think it's really important we get them the support they need at a younger age so that we try and break this cycle.
Yeah. So just go a little bit deeper on that. How are the pens used in prisons and the libraries and the workplaces that you've just been mentioning there?
So, libraries tend to buy pens just to make the libraries more accessible, because there's lots of different people who come into libraries, and if they can help some people who struggle with reading to access printed materials, then that's ticking another box for them to a certain extent. The prisons, as I just talked about, is I'm particularly passionate about this because there are such high volumes of people who struggle with reading in prisons. And again, we've got the English as an additional language factor, and they're also, as well as locked up for long hours, they get important documents come to them from their lawyers, or all the rest. And if they are having to ask another inmate to read those to them, or ask a prison officer to read them to them, that involves a lot of trust, and it can cause difficulties for those individuals by letting other people know what's going on in their life, which is perhaps things they want to keep private to themselves. So our technology has recently been approved for use in prison cells in the UK, or let me say England at this point, England. And so prisoners can be given our pens in the prison cells to access materials, so they can have a book, they can be studying. A lot of studying still goes on in prisons, and it's typically done in the education wings, most of which have been closed for the last year because of COVID. And so our pens have been used for a couple of years in educational wings, but now there's a real prospect of them getting into lots of prison cells all across the country, which really excites me, because these prisoners can be doing a lot more with their time, constructively, and then it's going to help with their rehabilitation. And hopefully once they come out of prison again, come out of the prison system on the other side, they'll have some new skills, new knowledge, which will help them get back into society. I'd probably just mention at this point, we've dedicated a new pen for the workplace and for prisons. It's called Reader Pen Secure, and all it does is read aloud, and it has a dictionary. So there's no storage function at all.
So much there to add about moving beyond education, and there's points to elements there that I'd never even have thought of about reading important documents. So I think that'll help really to show the utility of scanning pens in kind of every walk of life.
Definitely. And Ludo, we talked earlier about the children feeling embarrassed about having to ask someone else to support them when they're reading, but you're now a 24-year-old, you're in the workplace, or you're in a prison cell, admitting to people that you can't read, or these things are really tough on different parts of society. So the more we can all do to support them with independent reading, I think the better.
Yeah, and if you're armed with that little orange pen, then the confidence in your own ability is hugely augmented. Now, we've just got a kind of 5 or so minutes left, and there's a couple of areas that I would not like to finish this conversation without touching on. So the first of those is, could you tell us a little bit more about your Dear campaign, and what you're kind of hoping to achieve with Drop Everything and Read?
Yeah, so about 3 years ago, we decided we wanted to set up something that was like a positive campaign vehicle all around dyslexia. So we set up, it's really just a hashtag called Succeed with Dyslexia, and we use it on branding of mugs and tote bags we give out at trade shows and things. But we wanted to really create more content and interest in this whole idea around succeeding with dyslexia. So we've teamed up with dyslexia organizations all around the world. Last October, we did something called Go Red for Dyslexia. Red, it was something that parent groups were beginning to use in the October Dyslexia Awareness Month. We've noticed this in Australia and in America. Groups were trying to reclaim the color red in a fun way because it had been used to mark students' work, and mainly the children's work of these parents' groups. And the children just didn't like the red pen marking their work, and it was all quite negative. And so these parent groups wanted to reclaim the color red in a really positive way and make it fun and engaging again. So they started some sort of campaigns. And we decided, because we are in a number of different countries and we're quite close to a lot of dyslexia associations, let's see if we can tie together this campaign all around raising awareness and make an even bigger splash. So we did Go Red for Dyslexia last autumn, and it was really exciting. The British Dyslexia Association got involved, and we raised a lot of awareness, and we asked people to donate to their local dyslexia charities. So it's all kind of positive. And then we thought this spring, there's a lot of schools do a lot around reading in springtime, and there's World Book Day, and there's this thing called Dear, which is Drop Everything and Read. And that's where you can do it at home if you want, or it's quite common to do it in schools. My kids did it in their school last week. And that is the school suddenly says, right, drop everything and read. For 15 minutes, everyone is going to read. That includes the teaching staff, the support staff in the school. We're all going to stop and read our books for 15 minutes. And it's meant to be quite fun and engaging. So we thought we would do a little twist on Dear, and we do Dear for Dyslexia. And so we've created a campaign to support educators and tutors, etc., by creating resources they can give to children to support them with their reading. And there's book lists and suggestions, and lots of activities, and we're encouraging people to take pictures of themselves doing Dear time, and sharing those on social media with the hashtag Dear for Dyslexia. And at the end of this month, we've got a festival which now has more than 700 people attending, called Dear for Dyslexia Festival. It's totally free. It's running on the 29th of March in the UK for 3 hours, bringing together some educators to talk about strategies for supporting reading. And then on the 30th of March in the US, again, with a different group of educators coming together to share best practice and ideas.
Wonderful. Well, that is the next step to aim for then for listeners, really. And it sounds like you're very, very well attended and a very well kind of promoted event so far. So huge congratulations on that. And just before we finish, Jack, I would like to ask one question, and perhaps you've actually just answered my question with what you've just been discussing there about the Dear for Dyslexia Learning Festival. But right now, today, a listener comes to the end of this podcast and they want to get in touch. What is your advice to a tutor listening in to this podcast for accessing your pens? What's the next step?
Well, what I would say is we offer free trials to schools, and we offer free trials to parents now. So, and if there are tutors out there who are interested, please get in touch with us as well. We do an assessor discount, which sort of is for people who are out there, talking about support for reading and technology. So they're welcome to get in touch with us and to take us up on that. I always think that you just need to find what the child is interested in. So I don't know, my children, one of my eldest son's really into football, and he just loved football books. And I think finding your doorway into reading is so important. And that could be through the Beano comic, which, again, I have a 12, 11 and 6-year-old. That is read every week within about 30 minutes of it arriving on our door on a Saturday morning. It's just getting that love of reading. The Kindle, you mentioned earlier, my kids absolutely love their Kindles. It's just a different way of accessing text. You can take it everywhere, printed, you can download new books all the time. But yeah, I think also, trying out something new. So go and look online. There's so many resources out there to support reading. There's so many brilliant assistive technologies available, and to just go and find out more. Someone said to me at the beginning of the year, what you don't know, you don't know. And so, that is, I think, encouragement to us all to get out there and find out more about what we can do better.
Which is exactly what you've done today, Jack. So thank you very much for coming on. I know this is by no means your first podcast, so the links to Jack's other podcasts will be in the show notes below, as will the links to the UK and the US events of the Dear for Dyslexia Learning festivals on the 29th of March, and then the day after, and as will the link to Scanning Pen's scanningpens.co.uk, which is obviously Jack and Toby's company. So thank you very, very much. That's a hugely informative blog there, not only about dyslexia, but also about the work that these pens can do in schools and prisons and in the workplace. I hope you enjoyed it too. It's very much something I think people love to discuss their own projects, and that's kind of the beauty of the podcast medium. So thank you again, Jack, and I'm sure we would love to welcome you back on in a few months' time to discuss kind of developments of the pen and the tool.
Yeah, thank you so much for including me today, and well done to all the work you do in supporting tutors and educators, and ultimately helping children to achieve their goals at the end of the day, which is what we want them to do, is to all be successful and achieve their ambitions.
Yeah, which is why we're all here. So thank you very much again, Jack, and speak very soon. Thanks for listening to the Qualified Tutor podcast, where tutors share their expertise to support the tutoring community. If you'd like to continue the conversation, join our Qualified Tutor community at www.qualifiedtutorcommunity.org, or find it in the show notes below. We exist to connect, share, and learn with you, because tutoring is a small job that makes a big difference.